for Lord Cars.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Man of the people.
You know it's Cars Keys. Let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our takes like car thieves. Breakdown, we study tape and thrive.
Analytical preparation, that's what Cars is given. Cars don't discriminate, teaching the men and women. Each and every week, there's nerd to get your focus. Never manipulating stats, Lord Cars, no hocus pocus. Cars Keys, they're never lost. Checking source, never gonna find a better scouting report. Cars going live with the smartest man, my bestie. Deciphering holes on the defense like Getsy. New show, uniforms, orange with the dark sea. Tape never lies, patrons, this is Cars
You know
Keys.
it's Cars Keys. Let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our takes like car thieves. Breakdown, we study tape and thrive. We gotta break down tape like detectives. No hot takes, just real football perspectives. The Bears nerd dropping science on his terms. TTNL giving Bears press like a perm. Other networks is off with the heads. Stats plus film equals football cred. Analysis like Data Ted tries to shred. McCaskey's letting me cake, we keep the 100 crew fed. Cars Keys, let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our takes like car thieves. Breakdown, we study tape and thrive. Lord Hines in his car, fill up a goblet. Lord Hines in his car, fill up a goblet.
Season 1, Episode 12, Cars Keys. We got a quarterback. Chicago Bears have a quarterback. This shit's unlocked because it's like a party over here. Lots of work to do still, but man, it's a different vibe, guys. We've been talking about it all week. We took the L against Miami, but doesn't feel like a normal loss, that's for sure. So let's jump into it. Let's get our guy out here. There he is.
Didn't you mean running back? According to Packers fans, we have a running back.
LaShawn McCoy.
Oh, God, yeah.
Shady, dumbass Shady.
It fits. I mean, you're right, though. I think you nailed it. It's the most excited I have been for a losing streak probably in my entire life. And I think... if we want to give ourselves pats on the back, which is something we love to do here, we said that it would start to look more like our offense around weeks 8, 9, 10. And I think we're starting to get a good glimpse kind of what phase 1 of that offense is going to look like. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the phase 1 is unlike anything that we've ever seen before. I heard Olin Kreutz the other day talk about them bringing in a similar talent. And he goes, well, he was later in his career, and it really wasn't anything like we're watching now, talking about when they brought in Cordell Stewart when, after the slash phase in Pittsburgh. But it's not anything like what we're witnessing right now. And I don't give a shit what people say. The haters that are out there that are trying to talk this kid down, I mean, they either have some big time issues away from football that they need to get straightened out. And I'm not trying to make a political statement, but there is one there to be made with people, unfortunately, in this environment. And go ahead and get mad, because all it comes down to is straight up jealousy. You don't want the Bears to have a quarterback, and they have one of the brightest, shiniest new fucking toys in all of sports. The Bears are quickly becoming must-see TV because of one guy. And, I was talking to a guy today on the phone, and he kind of referred to it, but this is even bigger than that, bigger than Devin Hester. You'd go grab a beer or go grab a drink or go to the bathroom when the other team was punting. But when Devin Hester was back deep, you didn't. It was must-see TV. Olin referred to that too, saying everybody on the sidelines would stand up and focus on Devin. And
to this day, I can't hear that Soulja Boy song and not instantly be transported back to those moments. You're right. Like those, those were moments. Now you're talking about 10, 12 play drives. You're like, I'm not leaving because he may do something utterly amazing.
It's totally different. My son's 11 years old, and he didn't get to experience Devin Hester live and that whole euphoria that surrounded him. But I'll walk up into his room on a, 9:30 at night in the middle of summer, and he's on YouTube. And what is he doing? He's watching Devin Hester highlights. He's like, oh man, that must have been so awesome to watch that live. And I said, yeah, you did, Riley. Every time they kicked, you just were waiting for the explosion. And your point is great, Cars, saying that it's not a one shot thing. I mean, you could punt out of bounds every time.
Yep.
To take him out. You can't do that with a quarterback. And I said, this almost goes beyond football. I brought this up with Kenneth Davis last night. And the part that makes me a little happy is it's flying in the face of the old Bears fan that, we're gonna build the defense. We're gonna have a middle linebacker and restore the roar. Well, we traded the middle linebacker that everybody loved, and now the main focus, the face of the franchise, is quarterback number 1, Justin Fields. And it goes beyond that, Cars, because like I said, there's kids that don't care about the Bears that are gonna pick the Chicago Bears on Madden just because of this kid, as long as he keeps on this, ascension. And I can't undersell the wins and losses versus the big picture of where he is potentially headed. As long as he, Shady McCoy saying that the kid can't pass, that is just being ignorant. You tell me that this
it's clickbait. I mean, that's what it is.
It is. It's trying to stick out there. But Cars, you and I broke him down. We watched tape. This kid has always been pass first with the ability to run. He's running now because that's what it's going to take in this offense, the way this team is constructed, to contend it, to have the chance to win every week. EQ St. Brown catches that ball, Cars. I would have put $1,000 down. We're going to win. Yeah, totally agree.
But you're right, and the thing is the only thing from a run game perspective that has changed is basically the Bears have increased the amount of defined runs or expected runs, and it's gone from something like 2 or 3 to 6 or 7 a game. Yeah, that's a good increase, and we're going to talk a little bit about those numbers, but we're not running the Tony Rice Notre Dame triple option back there, right? Like these are plays, and one of the things we'll talk about here is and talk about it later as well is this is phase 1 of the offense. In phase 1, give Chris Morgan credit, give Getsy credit. Phase 1 has all been implementing things into the run game that has already been working.
Phil would be calling in right now if he wasn't in the air, car. So that was well played.
I mean, I'm going to take multiple shots at him throughout the night. Thankfully, he never watches the show anyway. But what they're doing to assist them in the run game is going to set up some of the stuff in the pass game here too. Like what they're doing today, I will keep referring to as phase 1. And phase 1 of this offense is 360 yards and 30 points a game. And now when they extend this, now I think we're going to really see more of the importance of a Chase Claypool, because I don't think a phase 2 could have happened this year with just Mooney, EQ,
totally agree.
Pettis, and Valus. I think phase 2 started the last couple of weeks because you see Cole Kmet in some better use cases. And so everybody getting pushed down a notch is going to help. And so this is a fun week because Detroit can't stop the run. Detroit is really not good against stopping the pass either. So this may not even be a week that we maybe show 1 or 2 different things in a pass game just to start to get some things around it. But this is a game where you just kind of do what you've been doing and control the clock and all these different things. And you can walk out very easily with a victory over a Detroit team who's probably coming off their season high, and it's going to go downhill from there.
Yeah, I mean, you say what you see how explosive Miami is, and our offense outscored their offense. End of the day last week.
Well, and when you look at, you should absolutely be upset about the defense. I don't want to take anything away and absolve them of this. But this is a team that went out and scored how many points in the second half against the Baltimore Ravens to come from behind? This is a team that has, played some really good defenses and still come out and scored points. This is a team that has played some bad defenses and hasn't scored because, the quarterback play has been was not as good that game. It's not bad that you can't match up with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I don't know how that could be that shocking.
Yeah, you're not talking about the 27th ranked offense.
Yeah,
guys, you know what I mean? That's the difference. And Cars, I mean, this is pretty obvious, but everything is easier when you have a quarterback that you believe in, that you can move with going forward. All those holes that you need to fill, all of that becomes easier because that number one issue is not on your mind. You're going to make every move with Justin Fields in mind. You're not making every move saying, fuck, we still need a quarterback. We don't know if we have that position filled. Those answers in Chicago have been going on forever. Forever.
Well, not according to Ben Albright, but no, I think you're absolutely right. And I think the beauty of this is his play really elevates the offense, because it's him. And we're going to talk about things like third down and how that's improved. But so much of that is him. And now the fear just of him escaping. Look at all the different times that Miami tried to drop spies on him. That they tried to drop 7 in the box, right? They tried to use their defensive ends to contain. Yeah. Did really bad jobs.
You better get one of those Acme rockets and shove it up your spy's ass to catch up to the kid.
It's just not going to happen. And so I, to a degree, I understand all this saying, of what this, this isn't sustainable. But Lamar Jackson's been doing this for 4 years. Randall Cunningham did this for a long time. Michael Vick did this for a long time. If you want to look at the other quarterbacks right now, Trevor Lawrence is sometimes having a good game, other times disappearing. Zach Wilson is not having a very good year. Mac Jones is not having a very good year. There's a lot of reasons for that. So who cares right now if it's his legs that are elevating the offense right now? Lamar Jackson, his second year, rushed for 1,200 yards, threw for 30 plus. Nobody cared, right? Nobody complained about that. Everybody has said it's not sustainable. And we sit here 3 seasons later, still doing the same thing. It's not like they're using him like Carolina did with Cam Newton, right? They're not running QB power 5 times a game and draws. He's not getting hit big on most of these runs. So it's just really kind of lazy reporting that I kind of expect, because I think for most of these folks, we all got, or a lot of us got really excited when Jay Cutler came in and it never worked out. And I think everybody is just kind of, is used to crapping on us about our quarterbacks. And it does feel weird to say, Shane. I'm super glad right now that we do not have Aaron Rodgers and we have the guy on our roster as our quarterback. What a weird time to be alive.
it really is, man. And it's crazy. And the thing that I don't want to say it gives me pause, but it gives me great excitement, is that I 100% believe in Justin Fields, the passer.
Oh, yeah. I think he's a better passer overall than Lamar. And
totally agree. Totally agree.
And that again is to his ceiling. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and that's to me, that's the separator. And they're gonna make moves, they're gonna add weapons. They had, like I said this to Kenneth Davis last night, and this is the difference. Jay Cutler, where they failed, was the secret to unlock the offense in their eyes back then was just get the quarterback. And that was it. And then they essentially go away from it. This this regime is not built that way. It's not just going to be
They've already
quarterback.
made more
and that's-
moves than we ever
Absolutely.
did for Cutler.
They've cleared the books out. They have the quarterback on the ascension. Yes, the defense has gotten worse. The defense has regressed because they've shipped guys, but they have a full slot of draft picks plus. That's never happened in the history of the Bears. I mean, we're not 60, 70, 80-year-old guys, but I'm just saying that it's in our lifetimes, it has not happened. It has not all synced up that you have a quarterback that's going to be, and I mean, I know I can get ahead of myself, Cars, but if this kid hits,
it's massive.
You're talking a level of Michael Jordan and then the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. And
it's
there's
Walter Payton right now. And if Justin Fields hits, look, I will never disrespect sweetness, but if this kid hits with the way that social media is today, the way that all these things are, Justin is going to clearly pass him as number 2 all time here in Chicago. And if he brings us more than one Super Bowl, I would argue that he has a very good chance of replacing MJ. Now, you're right. This is totally getting ahead of ourselves, but this is the first marquee player at the marquee position in all of sports that we have ever had.
Yep.
And so if he does this and just starts, if he puts in, MVP seasons, if he goes out and does multiple deep playoff runs and championship runs, this is going to be disgusting. And I can't wait. To your point, Cutler, right? We made more wide receiver moves for Justin Fields in season 1 than we ever made for Jay Cutler. He would have killed for a guy like a Chase Claypool. And instead we kept sticking him with 3rd, 4th, 5th round draft picks overall.
Johnny Knox was the guy they brought in that draft. And I mean, if you remember, they traded for Jay Cutler, and I believe it might have been later on that day or the very next day. Their next move was Orlando Pace.
Yep.
A washed Orlando Pace.
And then Eddie Royal, right? And different random names. Yeah, it was really weird.
And I got to put Arlington Heights into this. It's everything is lining up to be so un-Chicago Bears like, wow, the Bears could have a quarterback. The Bears' financial books are clean moving forward. The Bears have a full slot of draft picks. Oh, by the way, they just essentially paved the way, absolutely for a $5 billion, sports, mega city. And it's times are changing, man. And I couldn't be happier. I know people, historians of football, and there's people that are fired up, and I don't give a shit that it's a dome. I don't lose any sleep with that whatsoever. This is big time NFL forward thinking Chicago Bears. They've never done it before, and they're doing it now, and I couldn't be happier.
And it's time for me to take my 3rd shot at Phil, right? But we can't hold this team accountable for what the predecessor people in the franchise did. This isn't we're going to take Kyle Long from tackle and move him to guard, right? Yeah. This isn't we're going to move this player XYZ. If you want to believe that, I'm sorry, because look at the way that they have changed everything.
Yep.
For Justin Fields. They understand the importance. They understand the importance of the position and that guy. And so if they think a guy and moving a guy from one position to another is going to be better for him, they would have done it. They aren't. And it's fine. It doesn't mean that someone couldn't play the position, but it does mean that in their eyes, this is the best position for them. And by the way, that person is getting 3rd ranked in PFF at offensive guard on the season or something ridiculous.
Oh, he's an elite. Tevin Jenkins is an elite NFL offensive guard right now.
That's the more and again, when we start talking about Baltimore, yeah, your tackles are important, but the more important to most offenses is an interior rush kills offenses faster than anything else. Aaron Donald is so good and so dominant, but what takes him that next level is where he plays on that defensive line and where that comes in. It was what was made guys like Warren Sapp so really good. And I'm forgetting about the guy, John Randall, when I was growing up in the Vikings, right? If you can disrupt from the middle, you destroy offenses. And so Tevin really seals that up, because if you move him left tackle or you move him right tackle, you have two questions. That you got a question at center, you got a question at guard. So this is the best lineup. This is how they're going to go forward, and we'll figure it out. But this is not the Emery. This is not Angelo. This is not Tressman, Fox, Nagy, any of it. It is brand new.
Yeah, your head coach knows a little bit something about three techniques blowing games up.
Yeah,
you know,
just a bit, and what the lack of one really caused. Yeah,
absolutely. So, yeah, that's our little show banter before we get into some keys and some things that our guy over here, Cars, has noticed. So let's open up the nerd vault and throw some fucking numbers out here.
This is as close to a rant, I think, as you and I get. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. And the very vaunted Ryan Cox, Shane, and Cars text chain. One of the things we've been talking about is comparing some of the second-year numbers of Justin Fields to some of these guys. So I figured, what better way to start than looking at, this is 9 games in to the second year. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the differences here as well. But I think it's a really good place to start. So again, this is each team or each guy. This is 9 games into their second year. So very clearly, Lamar Jackson had a bigger year than everybody. But look at the next 3 in the way that goes. Jackson, Hurts, Allen, Fields, right? You see some teams, you look at things like yards per attempt in the pass. You look at completion percentage, which I think is really the next portion of what we want to look at, and kind of where that's, the next part for that to improve is going to be that completion percentage. For guys like Hurts, for guys like Allen, some of those completion percentage numbers went up just by adding additional wideouts and players. But when you look at these numbers overall, even down to rushing attempts, he's not too far off on any of these things.
No.
Now, the biggest difference that I'll sit down and throw out, and part of the reason that I put this on there is, Lamar Jackson did this with 3 Pro Bowlers. He did that with Ronnie Stanley at left tackle, with Orlando Brown at right tackle, and potentially in my lifetime, or at least over the last 15, 20 years, the best offensive guard play that I've ever seen in Marshall Yanda. And that's who he started on that line. When you go down to Jalen Hurts, he had 1, which is Kelsey, but it didn't include Lane Johnson, who has been phenomenal for most of his career.
He's been the best right tackle in football for most of his career. Not division, not team, pro football.
Oh yeah,
that's how good Lane Johnson is. Yeah.
Once he got over the steroid stuff, he really figured everything. And that's not a shot at him, right? Like, that's just the way that it was.
He was getting hurt and he wanted to get back quicker.
Yeah.
That's what it was about. And one other thing, Cars, and I'm sure you were going to cover this, but we have to. It's critical. Is Justin Fields' year 2 is really his year 1. You essentially have to write off the Matt Nagy year with everything that was going on. So this is everybody up above Fields, Jackson, Hurts, Allen. This is their year 2. It's what you're going to see next year is, I think, even going to be more comparable. And I think that's what's going to be even the separator for him.
So I completely agree. I think you really have to look at the next 8 games too as a
Yeah,
separate part of that season, because as he builds with Claypool and those additional portions, I absolutely agree with you. Because year 3, I think as long as the moves get made, um, and I think again, right, that those moves will happen. The trenches, especially if you watch that 1920 football drive,
yeah,
if anybody caught, like when they're talking about Clemson, they're talking nothing about their defensive line. When they're talking
right.
Alabama, it's defensive and offensive line, right? Like they are going to build those things. It's hugely important. Josh Allen didn't have a Pro Bowler. He just had Mitch Morse, Deion Dawkins, a better Cody Ford at that point. The lines were so much better at that point. And then if you look down below, I think the other portion that really hits me. So I consider a big pass play anything, and this is probably really important for Chicago Bears fans. So it is possible to throw the ball more than 20 yards in the air, and for
Unless
your own player to catch that ball.
unless you're a Pittsburgh fan.
Unless you're a Steelers fan, and those are the Bears fans we've been happy to get rid of. When you look at his percentage, and again, Josh Allen was throwing to at that point a healthy John Brown and a Cole Beasley underneath. Lamar had Mark Andrews at that point and Marquise Brown. Jalen Hurts didn't have a whole lot, but he had Dallas Goedert and this guy Devonta Smith, who's been really pretty good there. All of those guys are really much bigger players and better players than what we did or
Yeah.
what we've done. So his numbers being lower is expected. If I marry in that offensive line issue with our lack of wide receiver issue, it's very telling. So I guess what I'm trying to show here is all these folks on TV that keep saying you can't do this, you can't rush and rush at this level. Like, yeah, you can. If I look at Josh Allen at that point, he was doing things like running back or QB power because they didn't have running backs that second year. It took them a while to even get to the point of having a Devin Singletary. Everything really seems to me to line up with those other guys. And yes, there are always going to be differences, but you can't sit down and say, like, this is done. If Mike Martz can start eating crow today,
He certainly did today. Yeah.
this is on the up and up. And
Yeah, he took the kid from the outhouse to the penthouse today. I mean,
absolutely.
and credit to Mike Martz for
Oh,
doing
yeah.
it, because I mean he's as curmudgeon as they come, and I was a little taken aback, because he went from I don't think this kid can do it at all to holy shit, this kid is starting to figure it out, and where is he going to be going after this? This is amazing.
And I think even more so, he gave credit to Getsy for doing
Yeah.
something that Mike Martz has never done in his career,
Yeah.
which is tailor an offense to a quarterback instead of vice versa. So,
Cars, if we throw that graphic up there one more time, one thing while you were talking, and you know me, I tend to look at things a little bit differently, and this isn't a number that you have, but Lamar Jackson's head coach was the special teams coordinator. Jalen Hurts' head coach Sirianni was a offensive minded guy. Josh Allen is a defensive coordinator. His head coach, Justin Fields' head coach, is a defensive coordinator. So for all the people out there saying the only way that you can develop quarterbacks is if you have the lead dog is an offensive minded guy, this essentially flies in the face of that. You have 2 defensive coordinators, a special team coordinator, and Sirianni there.
who was sort of a special teams guy, but he
Right,
did have
yep.
offensive input as well. That's a very great thing. Like, I think, Shane, the thing we've always take away from this is there isn't a recipe.
No.
The cream rises to the top regardless. Trevor Lawrence, to me, has not – last week he played better, but he's got an offensive coach, and he has not necessarily looked great all season. The reverse of that, right? We see Mac Jones with an offensive coordinator who's good, and then this year with a defensive coordinator as offensive coordinator, not good. The formula is you just got to have a good brain, and you've got to be willing to adapt to what your quarterback does. You have to have a culture that wants to do that. The guys that you mentioned, Harbaugh's culture is beloved by Ravens players. Sirianni, for everything that he took early on as looking like a bad hire, he has really turned that thing around. And they went from Peterson constantly arguing and fighting in the press and all of those different issues. They've got a good culture. McDermott has really built a good culture. And I think we're starting to see that portion develop for Flus as well.
Yeah, you don't want a guy specialized. We went through that. You want a head coach. You want a leader of men. And this is what you go back. We covered Cars. I think you were on the show with us, the pop-up show, when we covered the presser when Poles and Eberflus came in, and they they were both talking, and that we all agreed after, what's the number one thing you took out of there? It was when they asked him, are you going to be calling the plays on? And he's like, no, I was hired to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears. And that's why you see him in quarterbacks meetings. We've seen the behind the scenes stuff, and that stuff is absolutely critical, because you have to be the CEO, and it's not just a one-sided thing. You have to. He obviously knows a ton about defense, but he's got the thing that's going to unlock this team, Cars, is Justin Fields, his development moving forward, and he knows that. That's why he's involved, but he's also not going to do the Matt Nagy, I'm the reason that we're going to win here. It's because of my offense, of the plays that I call. That's why you want a CEO, and credit to Phil. He would talk about that a ton, how it was critical. And I don't give two shits. You give me a good football coach, a good leader of men, and it's going to pay dividends for you.
And I think that's the biggest takeaway. I think the second one, and it even again showed up on that 1920 drive, is how much of a partnership this was.
Oh yeah,
we spent years during the Nagy and Pace era talking about how he drafted guys that wouldn't fit into what it is that Matt wanted to do.
Right.
Adam Shaheen, even if he worked out, was never going to be a guy that fit for what Cole Kmet was never going to be a guy that fit what he was trying to do. But you heard on that 1920, right? We now know the type of guys that Flus wants to build in this locker room. And so you see that happening. And now that, you kind of joked about it early, right? That the first season with Matt was a complete loss. I think they would admit right now that they now know what it is that they need to do for Justin as well, and the type of players that he needs to be surrounded with. So that even is going to help them going forward.
Yeah, it is. In Cars, I want to expand on how we're talking about things that the Bears haven't really looked forward with. And I think the 1920 football drive is a part of that.
It's wonderful.
Well, it's wonderful, but I also think it's a showcase to say, hey, Ian Cunningham's a dude. This is showcasing him behind the scenes. And that's what is it? It's 2 third-rounders, correct?
Yeah.
If he gets hired as a GM. And I'm not saying that they're just putting him out there in the meat market and say, take this guy. I mean, we want him here. I think he's critical. And I could listen to Ian Cunningham talk all day. I think he's actually a little smoother speaker than Ryan. Ryan Poles is very, very guarded, and I still don't think he's found his he seems like he's treading water a little bit every time he's talking. He doesn't want to say something that he's going to regret, so he almost like pauses after every 3 words.
Yep.
And Ian Cunningham, he's got the flat brim hat on,
and
he's
the
got
pencil tucked in.
Yeah, He's got the button up, and he just kind of chill sitting back. So they're two that and that's probably good for Ryan Poles to be around. But this is them looking ahead because it's more draft capital. Yes, it's going to suck when he goes, but at least you're getting compensated for it. And if you're going to lose Ian Cunningham, absolutely, you send me some more bullets to go out and find some more football players.
I think same with Getsy. I think more of that is probably still a year off, right? Like we need to get to a prove it time, which I think works out great for us because you see the relationship.
Yep.
But I think the other extension of that, Shane, is we would see Ryan Pace twice a year. We've seen polls twice in a week.
Yeah.
You know, when something happens, he's there. And it's not just at a press conference, right? He's holding sort of interim ones at stadiums to talk about things that happen. They have one of the things that we always complained about was, you know, I always remember when we were interviewing head coaches and we talked about Flip diagramming plays that they scored and doing this on a television show. And we sit down and we're like, can't talk about anything. This front office has been way more visible, way more vocal, doing a 19-20 drive in the season, talking about the scouting that they're doing. Like they're building momentum, and it makes it a lot more. Listen, you have a quarterback, this is making it a lot more fun. But if we had a quarterback and our GM was Phil Emery or Ryan Pace, you would still be terrified of what was going to happen, right? You would look at someone and be like, what 33-year-old offensive lineman are we going to go throw $27 million a year at, right?
Yeah.
And so
who's going to be the next Shea McClellan that we draft?
And so you look at that and you just kind of go, yeah, man, I get it. And it's different. I do want to answer this question because I do think this was one of my favorites from the press conference.
Yep.
I disagree with this, and I think that's a little bit of showmanship from Getsy.
I do too.
What they've really done the past couple of weeks, and it's not been, to my take, necessarily major. They've done some things to move the pocket more for him, but they've been doing little things on making changes. So it's first started with designed run plays for Justin. Yeah. I think it moved a little bit to some of the moving the pocket. But last week, we hadn't seen naked boots, to my recollection, yet this season.
No.
We hadn't seen any of this. And so when you start to look, maybe some of it, he'll say, isn't necessarily to better execution, but it is every week they're adding a new wrinkle. I mean, I can't think of a wide receiver or tight end. Maybe Tevin Wesco is the only guy that hasn't run a jet sweep yet this season, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really good showmanship overall, but I think everything we've seen on tape has been every week we're just releasing one, maybe two little things.
Yep.
And going forward.
So, Cars, before we get into the next one, I've seen it in the chat 2 or 3 different times talking about the Poles Cunningham connection, and is that something that would be sustainable for the Bears once Ted Phillips goes? I'll speak on it first. I don't think they have any intention of moving Ryan Poles up to that position. I will tell everybody and look straight into the camera a name that you probably need to remember, and that's a name that's already very invested and entrenched, and it's a name that you've seen pop up a lot more now because he's more involved, and that is the Jesus Christ, I just had it in mind. Who's the Cliff Stein?
Yep.
I would bet a wink, a lot of money that he is going to be very, very much involved in this process, if not the guy, because the McCaskies are going to default to what they're comfortable with, just like they did with Ted, and they're very comfortable with Cliff Stein. And there's been a lot of talk out there about who was it Joey Lane? Was that the
guy
the guy that did it before? And that he didn't have a good relationship with agents, and he was very rigid in his beliefs on the way that you do contracts, and that was why you saw, the holdout with Roquan initially over really just wording. But I don't think that it's a thing where, and I don't think that that's something that Ryan Poles, I don't think that that's something that would even interest him to be pushed up the ladder. I think this is his dream gig. This is his dream position. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, at some point you're going to lose Ian Cunningham. But I would write the name Cliff Stein down in pen, and I think he's going to be very much involved as the next president of the Chicago Bears. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm right, but I just think that that's a name that's going to be very much involved. He's a financial guy that's going to worry about that stuff. Exactly.
That's what they want. And because of the power they've given Poles, that's what they need. They don't need another cook in the kitchen. You're absolutely right. They need a financial guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing about it is the president, and I know that it's not in the past, he was involved a lot more in the football decisions, but I think the talk of Sweaty Teddy having his fingers on football decisions, and I don't think he's prevented the Bears lately from making any financial moves. It's just been the wrong moves. They've spent a shit ton of money on player acquisition. Just most of the time it was for the wrong players, or the contract was structured the wrong way. So, I think that it's going to be a finance guy. If Omar Khan was still available, I think that would have been a name, because they brought him in. They love everything Pittsburgh. I think that would be a definite guy that they would be looking at. But I would keep the name Cliff Stein. I'd put it down on your little yellow legal pad and store it away, because I think that they probably know already the direction they're going in. Because I mean, Ted's going in what is it, January?
Yeah. So
I know Bullets has the actual number of days down, so maybe he can throw that in the chat. I saw him down there, but
absolutely.
What do you got next, my man?
So let's talk about some of the biggest differences in the offense, and I think we've probably talked a little bit about it, but I think really key is what's made these drives sustainable is our third down conversion. So left-hand side is the first 5 games of the season. The right-hand side is the last 4. So what you're kind of seeing in here is we're seeing really good, incredibly good third down conversion percentages over the last group of weeks. Miami being the worst team that we have faced on third down, but you saw it earlier, right? We were not good at all against San Francisco. Forgive me, I forgot to get Houston's number. Houston is very bad in third downs. So that was, of course, the one defense that we've done pretty well against.
Yep.
So this whole narrative of like, what are they doing and who are they doing this against is not really accurate. And we'll talk even about scoring and offense, but we've always talked, right? The Justin Fields difference is Justin Fields and his ability with the legs and everything else has made what has been an offense stuck in 3rd and 6 into an or more, has turned it into an offense on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2. And those are way different convertible. And so when you start seeing, and I overheard Trent Dilfer say this on Parkins and Spiegel, and to some degree,
there it is. 58 days. Can always count on Bullets.
Always. Even though he's got horrible takes on Luke Getsy, but maybe you should stop listening to Phil for a while. When Trent Dilfer said on Parkins and Spiegel, he said one of the things that you should do is start to look at how many what our scoring drive percentage is.
Yep.
When it's Justin Fields converting a third down. And
got to be high.
And it's super high. And we'll talk about another stat later on that I think is really telling, that kind of is a culmination of all of these different stats. But third down is where offenses make your money. If you are good at third down and you are good at red zone, you are going to be a good offense. And you can see this with the way that now in the red zone, we've transitioned from so run heavy to more pass heavy, and how that has changed not even just, our scoring chances, but how frequently we're getting into the red zone.
Yep.
You don't score 30 points a game by accident. And so
not in Chicago, you don't.
No, I mean, it is an accident if you score 30, because it's usually like, Tillman and Urlacher have scored 14 of the 30, and you're
or Devin has returned 2 punts,
It's so ridiculous. But I think that was the first part of what I wanted to look at. And when you carry that on to part 2, right, which is really the other thing, let's look at what they're doing as an offense. So very interestingly, right, we have gone over 360 yards 4 games in a row.
Yeah.
We have only done that from a brief look 3 times in the last decade, right? So 3 times in the last decade-ish have we gone consecutive back-to-back games scoring at 360 and scoring over 25 points in a game. I mean, that's insane. Yeah. And so when you look again at who we're doing these numbers against, only 2 teams has scored more than 17 points against Dallas in a game. And we were one of 2 teams that did it in a half. It was us in Philadelphia.
Yep.
New England has been a fantastic scoring defense. Washington absolutely ate our lunch because as a defensive line, we could not match up with them at all. And Miami, right, because of the way that they play offense and have so many big plays and keep doing that, you could, even if you had more all pros, that defense isn't going to be built to stop folks because they're just constantly going to be on the field. But so when you look at this and you look at the teams that they played early that were not good, that they couldn't score against, that we couldn't get yards against, and we have changed this now to an offense that is moving the ball. And I flat out, this should be another week of 350 plus, 25 plus a game, which, kind of leads me into this because, what the heck, why not? If you look right now, we are scoring at a clip inside the red zone of almost 60%. That's 16th in the NFL. But look at the last 3 games. We're in the red zone 64% of the time at scoring. Not scoring field goals. That's scoring touchdowns. That's 10th in the NFL over that span. And you can read the names below of those teams. And when you look over the last 3 weeks, this is a team that is 7th in yardage and 2nd in scoring. And I want to emphasize that. And if I go back, sorry, I'm a nerd and we do PowerPoint slides, against really pretty good defenses those last 3 weeks, to sit here and tell me with how this season started, with the lack of talent that was there, with figuring out how to get these places to meet in a shortened off season, without a lot of pads, without a deep preseason, holy shit. We're scoring more than the Titans, and overall, right? We're scoring more than the Packers, the Titans, the Bucks, the Rams, Pitt, Indy. All of these teams are teams that we all expected to be playoff runners, and they're sitting behind us on an ascending offense.
Yeah.
The last one I just think is fascinating is just simply that the Bears are 32nd in passing attempts, and it's not like a close 32nd. No. We are way behind, but we are 19th in passing TDs. If you look at that number and understand, again, that big play number of where we're going, this isn't the Pittsburgh Steelers who haven't scored a touchdown outside of 10 points all year or outside of 10 yards all year.
Yeah, 8 yards is their longest, right?
The tight end Pat Fryermuth and second longest is a 7-yard reception from a guy named Chase Claypool. This is an offense that is truly ascending. And again, it's ascending at the time that we told you it was going to be ascending. So it's
Yeah,
super exciting times right now.
yeah, it is, man. It's around that midway point, and you want to head down this second half and into the home stretch, on an upswing, and they do. It's going to be interesting to see how teams like Philly and Buffalo come in here, and they're obviously teams that are high up on the power rankings and expected to be contending
Yeah.
for Super Bowl berths, depending on Josh Allen's elbow and how that works out. I see he didn't practice for the second day in a row today.
It feels like that's worse than they want to let on.
Yeah, absolutely does. One thing somebody had in the chat, I should have started. Yeah, D. Levine, he was asking about, what we're going to do on defense. And that's unfortunately, you're not going to make a lot of entails on defense this year, man. That's what happens when you trade Robert Quinn. That's what happens when you trade Roquan Smith. And
even before then,
yeah,
we've got 3 defensive tackles, and I'll say, and I know someone had a meltdown about him yesterday or last week, but Jones has played pretty well. But it's the other 3 outside of Watts, to me, who's been a disappointment, of Blackson, who's been a disappointment. Pennell has been better in the run defense, and it's unfortunately that we need him as much. But we were never going to be that good because we didn't have the interior guys to run this defense.
Well, in this defense, guys, everybody's heard it. You have to have that. You got to have that nickel that's going to be critical. You got to have that 3 technique that anybody that's running this defense. You heard Greg Gabriel talk about when they hired Lovie Smith. Every single day he was in the GM's office pounding the table. You got to get me a 3 tech. You got to get me a 3 tech. You saw what the Bears did right out the gate with Ryan Poles. They went and thought they had their 3 tech in Ogunjobi. It didn't work out, failed his physical. That's going to be addressed in the offseason. They're not going to go out and find their guy. I see Ryan Cox sent us, I think Tillery has been released by the Chargers.
He'll get claimed. We'll put in a waiver claim for him.
Oh, Cars, you have to.
Absolutely.
You have to 100% have to. You have to get another body in there, but the will linebacker spot, the 3 most critical positions in this defense. Kyler Gordon is up and down, which he is going to be, but when things improve in front of him, obviously things are going to improve for him too. But other than him, you don't have the 3 tech, you don't have the will backer. Morrow was my bear down this past game, and it's not going to get fixed this season, and you shouldn't be upset about that. You have to change your thinking on that. Go to the offensive side of the ball and enjoy that ride that we've never had, and enjoy this ascension with Justin Fields. The defense is going to come, guys. They have the war chest of money. They have the draft picks, and if the Bears go out and they're in every game, and then if they finish with a shitty record, and your fucking prize might be Jalen Carter, and that's going to be you're going to have the linchpin on offense, and you're going to have the fucking linchpin on defense, because it'll be Justin Fields and Jalen Carter, and it's going to be that big. Happens. Holy shit!
I think that's, and I think I got in an argument with someone on Twitter because they're like, you need all these hosses to be incredible, and it's like, well, yeah, but buddy, like, look at what Vic Fangio needed. Vic Fangio, for his defense to be truly elite, needed an outside rusher, needed an incredible inside linebacker, and needed a perfect outside cornerback. So the difference is, right, everything kind of moves a little differently. In a cover 2 kind of softer zone type coverage, you need a good 3 technique, you need a weak side linebacker, and you need the nickel. So anywhere you go to be a great offense, what do you need these days? You need a number 1 quarterback, a left tackle, and a wideout. Everything in the NFL is 3s. So you're right. It does get frustrating. They're not going to blitz. They're not going to blitz a ton because their philosophy is always keep the ball in front of you and we're going to get turnovers. It wasn't a good matchup against Miami. I get it. And I would have loved to see them play better. But look what happened in the second half. They got better. They're making adjustments. It may not be what we want. But this was never going to be a team that's going to go win 11 games.
Our offense outscored them.
Yeah.
And they have way more explosive weapons than the Chicago Bears do. And I understand that, guys, if you go back and you look at our offseason analysis, and I understand that the way that this defense is constructed now, it's even more critical. They'll dial up some blitzes, but end of the day, it's just not who they are. And they've never been that way. Flus has never, and I understand they don't have the front four to win with. I think you'll see more blitzes versus Detroit than you did versus Miami just because of the fucking weapons that were involved last week. They didn't, if they were going to give up 15, 17, 18, they didn't want to give up 60, 65, 80. And they had the ability to do that. You get caught on a blitz and Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Gesicki, all these guys, it's over. It's gone. So,
and by the way, Gesicki is another name that I think does have potential to be here in free agency because he's not going to be in Miami. And you've seen some of the 2 tight end sets. You've seen, again, Baltimore, what they've done now with likely ascending paired with Mark Andrews. He's another name I think we have to keep on the radar for us.
Totally agree. There's nobody on this team that is, don't get stuck into the fact of thinking that Chase Claypool is your number one, so you're settled there. That's no. You slot him in to your number 2 spot. You slot Darnell Mooney in as your slot wide receiver that you can move around a little bit, but as your number 3, and we'll see what happens up top. And I think, Cars, we talked about Tampa and other teams there's potential to move off of guys. T. Higgins was the name that we brought up before. It's going to be interesting. The Bears are going to have a ton of money to help other teams out. You want to get rid of that
Miami
guy?
did. And
absolutely.
That's Miami did that. That's how they got Tyreek Hill. It's a great call.
So it's going to be interesting. It's just there's so many holes, and listen, it's way harder to fill holes in season. But when, a guy like Tillery becomes available, you give him a half a season look-see and see, maybe he's a guy that you can move ahead with as a piece. He's not the answer. He's not,
but there are very few answers at key positions like that. We've said that about wide receiver. 3 technique is another one. There aren't a ton of guys that can play it at a dominant Warren Sapp, Tommy Harris when healthy, anything.
Right. Yeah. And Ben, that was the name that we talked about. Mike Evans. You talked about who's the other kid there that signed the
Godwin.
Godwin is another name. There's gonna be moves there to make, but I said you want to fix your defense, day one free agency. If the Commanders don't tag Daron Payne, you go out and you get him, and that still doesn't prevent you from drafting Jalen Carter.
No, and I think
at all.
No, absolutely not. And I think one more name, watching the way that their season is melting down and catching the argument on the sidelines.
I know where you're going. Yep.
DeAndre Hopkins is another guy that could want to force himself out from the Call of Duty king himself. So, that's the part when we sit down and we say, what Rick is asking. I think, Shane, you and I kind of agree here. They're not spending all of that money.
Nope. They won't.
There's going to be there's going to be Daron Payne, 4-year deal, 5-year deal, but another guy, it's going to be a 1 or 2 year, right? They're going to take these guys and not spend all that money. That money up front may go to, a Chase Claypool if he works out. It may go to a Darnell Mooney to front load those deals. because I heard you say it last night, right? When Justin Fields
Yeah.
hits, you're talking 60-ish million probably at like 3 or 4 years.
50 to 60 a year. Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's going to be, and everything is going to be constructed. These big deals that you see now are going to be constructed so the guaranteed money is essentially evaporated when it's time for Justin to set franchise altering deal. And I welcome it with open arms if the Bears have to give him that contract, because that means that they definitely have a guy, and that's something that we've never seen. But the 125 million, this isn't going to be a Washington, formerly Redskins Commanders off season where they're just going out and, oh, this guy is 34, but he's a big name, so we're going to sign him. It's not. Yeah. That's not going to. You're going to see some big names. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they got a shit ton of money. They're gonna spend a lot of it, but they're not going to spend all of it. No. They're going to carry some of it over, and you're going to see. You talk about extensions, you can't forget about Cole Kmet, another guy that's gonna warrant an extension. Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, those guys right there are going to take up a big chunk. You bring in a guy like Daron Payne, you bring in another offensive lineman. If they acquire a wide receiver from a team that's a big money guy. So now you're putting a pretty big dent into that 125, but it's going to be this is the poker aspect, and this is where the fuck a cap philosophy doesn't work, because fuck a cap, guys. And I'm not trying to degrade Phil or his philosophy. It is a real thing. If you're in Super Bowl contention, you can,
but that's the only
future
thing.
Right? Exactly.
But it's the only
right. You can borrow from the future to attack now, to get the Lombardi now, to go for it. You can't do that when you're a 3-6 football team and just go out and say, fuck it, we'll figure it out, because then that's when you're restructuring Cody Whitehair twice. That's when you're restructuring Khalil Mack 3 times. And then you have to trade a guy because his cap number is so out of whack. It makes no sense for you to move forward with him, even though the talent is still there on the player. So they're going to be judicious. They're going to spend a shitload of money.
Oh yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but they're going to be very calculated and decisive. It's not going to be, oh, give me him, and him. It's not like Angelo going into a wing bar and just fucking buying 12 of everything. Yeah.
Well, but I think we keep going back to it. If Daron Payne is available,
Day one guy.
You're
there with the Brinks truck. Name your price. Boom, come here. Because Cars, what that does is, if a guy if you're lucky enough to have Jalen Carter fall into your lap, even to Will Anderson is a fantastic player. On no planet would I ever draft Will Anderson over Jalen Carter. Ever. And I'm an Alabama guy saying that. But signing Daron Payne makes it, if you lose out on Jalen Carter, that you don't have to stretch and grab a 3-tech just to grab one. It gives you the ability to go best player available. This is the poker game that we try to tell you guys about all the time. We're not making shit up. And that's Ryan Poles wasn't making shit up. He literally showed you the blueprint last year. He is not going to waver from BPA to say, oh, the fans want a wide receiver. We need a wide receiver. All right, I'm going to push these guys that I have ranked higher on my board to take a wide receiver. No, that is the best way that you become a former GM. Not a lot of 2-time GMs in the NFL.
Well, and I think to piggyback off of that, so much of this is going to be where the season ends.
Yep.
The Bears are going to understand. If the Bears sit there and somehow they're top 5, which I don't think they will be, they're not moving off of that position because Jalen Carter is going to be available.
Right.
You get to the 8 range, 8, 9, 10, 12. you for sure can see movement because the way that these things work and the way that players are, you for sure there's going to be 3 quarterbacks that go early, way earlier than they probably should. So how does that move
Happens
the
every
draft
year, yeah.
board? So if the Bears sit there and they're at 4, you might not see them sign or go draft a Daron Payne because they think that they're going to go get a Jalen Carter. But to your point,
I'd still go.
I know.
Go for both.
I know.
I don't
I
think it's
get ya.
being. I don't think it's being unwise either. I mean, if you can
No.
if you can build a strength and then give you. I mean, you talk about an interior of a line with Daron Payne and Jalen Carter. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's.
I don't think you're wrong,
bonkers.
but I think if you look at like kind of what Rel is saying, it's not just the D. You got to look.
Yeah.
You've got to
Yep.
look at both. Where does Flus's defense really start? It starts up front.
Yep.
What has everything that Cunningham and Poles taught us about this offensive line or this offense? It starts up front.
Yep.
It's not just going to be the defensive line that's built through the draft. It's going to be the offensive line as well. I tweeted the other day, right? Names you should start to get familiar with outside of just Jalen Carter. Skoronski from Northwestern, Olu Fashanu from Penn State, Paris Johnson from Ohio State. There are a lot of different guys. You know, I've talked. Yeah, exactly. I've talked a lot about Quentin Johnston as a wide receiver, Jordan Addison as a wide receiver. Like there are a lot of different ways that they can go, but I do really feel, and Joseph is right as well. We're kind of lucky here. This is a pretty good year for centers.
Yep.
The kid from Minnesota in the second round feels like it could be a really good fit. But it could also be a position where with the way the board is falling and the way this draft happens, the Bears are going to be way more comfortable to move down and accrue picks because to me, and I know we'll talk about this in Draft Mob, but to me, the value outside of the top 3, once you get past Anderson, Carter, and maybe one of the 2 quarterbacks, to me, I don't love either of them, but I will convince myself that one of them is in the top 3. The value from 4 to 20 is really the same.
Yep.
And so it just takes one team to fall in love with someone, and now all of a sudden you've got movement and additional picks to make.
That's what you saw with this past draft cars. It was really like 16 to 62 or something.
36, I think is what. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was. It's just just because there's 32 picks in the first round, there's never 32 graded guys in the first round. But in the chat, I saw somebody had listen. If the Bears are on the clock and Jalen Carter is available, they are not trading down, guys. I will.
Absolutely.
They're just not. They're gonna fucking draft him, and he's gonna be a staple in your defense for the next 10 to 12 years, barring injury. He's that good. D. Levine, this is another thing. I just don't know if you're Kansas City with the way that you're structured, how you gave up a first round draft pick for him. I just don't know how do they let him get away?
Well, and worse than that, right now, the way he's played this season,
it's been poor. Yeah.
Orlando his availability is based off name and not performance. And that's the only way you get him, which then makes you more concerned to get him, is if Kansas City all of a sudden says, yeah, we thought this was the guy and it's not anymore.
And you may think they need a left tackle. Yes, Braxton Jones can improve, but they're letting the kid learn on the fucking fly, guys. It's not that hard to see. You can disagree with it, and I know that Phil does, and Phil wants Jenkins in there. We understand that. They're not moving off of Braxton Jones cars.
No. I mean,
they're not.
If anything, the worst case for Braxton is that he's your right tackle next season. Because really, to me, the thing he struggles with the most is body strength, right? And losing on some of those physical plays, which is something that is truly physical. We like to highlight all the mauling plays of Tevin Jenkins, But if you go watch some of those run game plays, number 70 is clearing guys out as well. Yes, he needs to get much stronger. He needs to
But
get better
that
protection.
happens in your first
Yes,
full NFL offseason, your weight
absolutely.
program. It's just they're gonna take some lumps, and we understand that. And 100%, you have the ability to call these guys out, but they're willing to get punched in the face. That's why they took the majority. They took the whole thing of Khalil Mack moving him. That's why they got kicked in the balls financially this year, so they could clear the deck for
Yeah.
next year. That's this all plays into it. It's you want to play chess while everybody else is playing checkers. You're thinking 6, 7 moves ahead, and for the first time in a long time, it really seems like this regime is actually doing that. And we've been calling for it for a long, long time.
And I think you read a lot more into if Riley Reif is starting this week. I think you have to read a tremendous amount into that going into, to me, Borum has not played with any sort of fire or anything. But it would be very telling that Borum has been replaced and Braxton has not. I
Yeah.
think they feel a lot of upside with him as a player. They love his demeanor. They love his attitude. He absolutely needs to get better. He absolutely needs to get stronger. But this is a front office that really, really believes in Braxton Jones.
They do, and they believe in the upside and where he came. Where did he come out of? Is it Utah State?
South Utah or something like that.
So
yeah.
you talk about the transition from Southern Utah State or wherever the fuck it is. And yeah, they understand.
Utah. Yep.
He needs to get better. Everybody agrees, but that's the point is they're willing to get punched in the face. They're willing to let him fuck up, but they think that the upside is there. Now, this offseason is going to be absolutely critical for Braxton Jones. And if he's taken a jump from Southeast Utah State to starting left tackle for the Chicago Bears, what's he going to do from year 1 in Chicago to year 2 in Chicago with being in the weight program, being locked in with the sports science, changing his diet. He knows, he's got his place to live. He's not worried about all that shit you are as a rookie. He didn't come here thinking that he was going to be the opening day starter at left tackle for the Chicago Bears. All of that shit is in his past. And now it's all football all the time. And that, believe me, they're going to have a laundry list. You think that the negotiations with Roquan exit meetings are the same fucking way. They're going to point out everything that you fucked up and everything that they want you to work on.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a big part of it. And everybody gets so locked into saying, oh, this kid sucks. That's it. Got to replace him. Need somebody better. Need somebody more aggressive. Guys in the NFL improve all the time. Oh, yeah. Justin Fields is literally fucking showing you that.
Yeah. Well, and I think we have to say, if anybody has spent any time watching Seattle this year, Braxton Jones has outplayed Cross, and it's not really, to me, that close.
Yeah.
So there is upside there. And listen, it's not saying he's a sure thing. And I think, the other portion that I'm interested to see is what happens with Leatherwood later on in the season, right? To
Absolutely.
see where they get younger.
Yeah, and guys, mono, I don't know if anybody's ever had it, but that's no fucking
That's a
joke.
long
I mean, that
recovery.
can and when you're an NFL football player and you're lifting weights and you're eating a very specific way, and then you get mono and you lose a tremendous amount of weight in a short amount of time. When you lose weight like that, you also lose strength. And Flus hasn't been one to say, fuck it, get back in there and go. He's, defaulted to taking baby steps with these guys to make sure that they are ready to go. And more so with Leatherwood, because let's not forget, guys, when they claimed him, they claimed $5.2 million in guarantees with him.
Yes.
So they see something there But if it takes a little bit longer for him to get ready, it just does. They see something there, and that he's. I mean, how old's Leatherwood? 23?
23, 24. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
he's
I
he's
had
easy
it
to
in
forget about.
yeah.
He's easy to forget about because he's been, non-existent and on the non-football injury list. But he's another piece that you have to absolutely take into account.
No, and I had mono back in my track running days, and the biggest issue was getting my lungs back. Like it took a long while for me to be able to get up to top speed and maintain that in the 400-meter run, right?
Yeah,
It
and you weren't an offensive lineman in the NFL either.
I
So.
weighed 130 pounds at 5'11". So if I was struggling, I looked like one of those kids on a Sally Struthers commercial.
You were a bigger nerd then than you are now, Cars.
Oh my God. I look like, I always joke about it, right? But I literally look like one of those before pictures before someone started to pound muscle milk and anabolic steroids. But I couldn't get my lungs back. Like your conditioning, not even just your strength, but your ability to go out. Think of him trying to be on a 10-play drive and have his lungs for all of that. It will take time to get over.
Yeah, and where is it? D. Levine here, protecting the blind side of a quarterback we have not seen in a generation. I don't know if you roll the dice. Well, they literally are.
Well, and they're the best guys to judge it are offensive line experts from two of the best organizations at building offensive line.
Yeah.
I'm going to default to them a little bit.
I get that it's a risk, but, it's not just they're around this kid every day behind the scenes. They see what his work ethic is. They see how he is with his teammates. And yes, the tape never lies, but you can be a fabulous football player and be a complete fuck up malcontent away from it, and you're not going to be in the league very long. And they're around this kid, and they are gambling, man. You don't think
love his demeanor, though.
They do, but D. Levine is right in saying that it is a gamble. It was a gamble absolutely from day one. I mean, how many 5th round starters out of Southeast Utah State come in and are protecting the blind side of a top 11 pick at quarterback? It's pretty fucking rare, but they are gambling, and he's had plenty of bumps in the road. 100% he needs to improve, but they're just banking on that he is the absolute guy to improve. They're banking on it because has he improved from Southeast Utah State? It's a pretty safe bet, yeah, that he has. So they're banking that from year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to year 3 that you're going to see even more improvement. So when we talk about Justin Fields, you want that arrow pointing up. You want the same thing with Braxton Jones, with all these young guys. We saw bumps in the road with Kyler Gordon. He's made some plays. He had a tough game last week. Jaquan Brisker left a fucking pick that he maybe could have housed last week. Yep. But he didn't get his head turned around in time. But those are the bumps that you take along the way when you're a team in the position that the Bears are.
And to speak to Joseph, listen, I think he's made a lot of progress. I think he struggles and continues to struggle with power rushers from really stronger defensive ends. But if you look at his footwork and some of his placement, he's been pretty good. He's gotten better. And I think if you look at, again, where he is in the run game is night and day different from the pass game, right? When you set him on aggressive mode, he's better. He's got a little bit of a weight balance when it comes to some of these power rush moves. You saw it a couple of times with Chubb, who I think, by the way, to me, I thought he played fairly well against Chubb overall. But you'll see it when, watch him in a bull rush. You will see him not just stand up, but also kind of get pushed back. And he does struggle sometimes with weight and balance. But overall, no, he's been really intriguing in the way that he's grown. And
there is no doubt that his core strength has to improve a lot.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but that's what an NFL offseason is for, guys. That's, you're not out there getting the shit kicked out of you every week. you're not in your playbook, figuring out your assignments for your next game and stuff like that. You're taking care of your temple, you're taking care of your body and focusing in on that, and then going from there. And once your core strength is improved, then you're getting your feet on the ground and seeing how that translates over once you get back on the field into your mechanics, and like Carr said, into his, keeping his balance. And that's what you do. That's what NFL off seasons are for. It's hard. You can't do that in season. You're not improving a ton on your core strength in season because these guys are constantly going. I mean, a lot of these guys lose weight, and it's a chore for them to keep their weight up. But no, we'll see where he is, and it's going to be a critical offseason for Braxton Jones, just like it is for Ryan Poles, just like it is for Justin Fields.
The under 25 crew is going to have to step up, right? I mean, that's what it is. And I think you talked a little bit about him, but Jaquan Brisker, they've been way more active and aggressive with him than I expected. He's a guy who I can't wait to see come like week 15, 16, 17, right? How they're deploying and using him. Kyler Gordon, to your point, has settled a little bit more. Yeah, he got toasty this last week. I don't know many cornerbacks that don't get toasty.
Imagine he got beat up a little bit by Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I can't even fucking imagine.
Who saw that coming, right? And you see these things. And the other portion I think that I'm super excited for this week is we're going to see Chase Claypool. And if I wanted to break video, but I've had an absolute shit work week, so I apologize. But when you looked at the way that they used him, quick game to get him the ball in the hands to make plays, right, and screens and quick little slants.
And he showed the ability to break them.
Yes, and deep balls, because he caught what should have been 2 deep pass interference calls because of the way that his body control. And even on top of that, the way he did control his body to make those things happen, the way he was able to box out defenders and get in front of them and do those things, that is a skill set that nobody else on this team has. So as Chase gets more involved, the next wrinkle, we saw this last week, naked boots, right? And what he was running. Yep. We saw those come out to Cole Kmet. The next portion is moving those launch points to deep throws to Chase Claypool.
Yeah.
And so those are the next wrinkles. Like when you talk about like where does the offense go from here, it is the continued evolution of 1. It is the growth and integration of 10 into this offense. And oh, by the way, it is now getting Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet, who 3 touchdowns now over the last 2 weeks, is ascending as a tight end as well. Everybody is shifting, and now this offense is going to look much better. I can't wait to see it against Detroit. They could unleash hell this week, and that could just be a blast of a game.
I wasn't on Keeping It 100 last week because I had some family stuff that I was taking care of. But the week before, my bold prediction was the game was for them to go up top to Velas. I hit on that. He just didn't catch the fucking ball.
He didn't hit on it, yeah.
My bold prediction last night for the Detroit game was a big game from Claypool.
Yep.
And my big game was 6 catches, 122 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Because I think you're going to see those deep passes.
He's going to get fed.
Yep.
Big time.
Totally agree. I mean, what was it? 26 plays?
And 6. He had 6 passes thrown his way in 26 plays.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And he had been here a handful of days.
Yes.
Also, so that's, you're getting another week in, and, the timing is something that obviously Justin Fields is a guy you're never going to have to worry about. He talked about it there. How do you build that chemistry with Chase? You stay after practice, you throw balls after practice. And I mean, he lives in the complex, and that Darnell is there too. So I think you're going to see these explosive plays that we've seen in the run game. I think that they're still going to be there, but I think, like Cars, to your point, you're going to see more of them in the pass game also, because people have – this is what having a dual threat guy back there. This is exactly what you want, because they're like, oh, shit. Oh, fuck, there goes Claypool. And boom, touchdown.
Yep.
That's, it's exactly, what you want. And no, I'm excited too, man. These guys aren't going to go out and win a Super Bowl this year, but where the direction that they're headed, more and more looking back now and seeing Claypool, and that they, got that second rounder, Cars. You and I are both on record saying probably if we hadn't traded Roquan, we wouldn't have pulled the trigger on the deal. But man, looking at it right now, he's the 6'4", 238, man. That's pretty fucking rare.
That strength and the way he fights through things, and the fact that he's finally going to get deep balls through him, as you could tell in his interviews how frustrated he was playing in Pittsburgh. This is only going to unlock him. I mean, I understand there's a lot of celebrations, but him putting that fake crown on Justin Fields last week, that tells you where he's at. And he was involved. They want to feed him. That makes the guys play even better. I'm with you. I predict a 100-yard plus game and 2 touchdowns. I think it just makes sense.
Yeah. So, you got anything else up there, man, or we got it all?
I think we got it all
covered. So we're pushing 90 minutes. I know Cars threatened me with a 4-hour show tonight, but I know he's got some family stuff tonight he's going to be.
I always want to threaten you with a 4-hour show, because we're going to do it. We're going to do it live. I've got 16 songs to get released today, and then I did music videos to accompany all of those. So
I don't have to worry about the back-to-back 4-hour bangers until the end of April, when the draft rolls around, usually at the end of that week, because if you're not familiar with what we do here, and Cars is obviously a very big part of what we do and where we're going with this, but draft week, we go live every single night of the week of the draft, and usually by rounds 5, 6, and 7 on Saturday, it's we're pretty well strung out and just having a good time. But we were pushing 40 hours of on-air content this past NFL draft, and I mean we love it. And head over to the tapeneverlies.com to sign up for our Patreon. You're going to see my guy over here, Cars, in Draft Mob, and Bullets put it out there talking about how excited he's going to be for Draft Mob this year, Cars, because it's going to be, it's going to be so
different,
much more fun, and it's going to be just like, because we kind of know a little bit about what Ryan Poles, how he attacks things and what he sees. We know that he's not going, it's got to be very, very close for him to go away from BPA. If there's a need and BPA are very, very close, he may pull the trigger there. But if he's got a guy that's 15th on his board and he's got a need position that's ranked 24th, he's not going to deviate, nor should he. No,
because there's enough holes on this team. And so absolutely. You can't really overlook any of those. I think that's, to me, Shane, the most fun part is we're going to be able to cater this more to the way that they view this, right? Like last year, we talked a lot about wide receivers, and because we felt like it was a need. But now that we know how these guys look at everything, we know where they're going to view the needs. And so this is going to bring in guys like Miles Murphy from Clemson into the conversation, and other guys that we may not have looked at earlier, not because they're not intriguing prospects, but because we couldn't see the fit. Now we know, again, 1920, they talked about the guys that Flus wants on that defense. We know the guys that they want on that offensive line. Yeah. We're going to be able to tailor this a lot more to kind of where we see this thing going.
Yeah, and when you're looking at guys on defense, especially at the linebacker position, look at length. Look at explosive players. Don't look at a guy that's hey, you can bring in a guy that's 5'11" that's explosive as hell, and I understand that they can have a long career, but they're going to have a type. Flus has a type, and they want length. They want explosive guys. It's not about tackling every single time. That's not going to be your number one attribute. Ball production. He came out and told you that's what it's about at the will linebacker position. So it's going to be interesting. And it's not just length at the will position cards. It's going to be length everywhere. They want big, fast, strong football players everywhere. And man, I am so excited. I'm excited about this game on Sunday. And it's always bittersweet when the season ends, but we know that TTNL, we get you guys right into it. We jump right into the off season with X's with the O's, breaking things down, and then we flip it over to Draft Mob and start getting you guys ready for the 2023 NFL Draft. And it's going to be a hell of a ride this year. But got anything else, Cars, before we wrap it up?
No, I think I'm good. Looking forward to the game, and for folks that are going to be able to make it to the tailgate and everything, I'm really looking forward to running into you. And please say hi so that I don't have to talk to other people there. So please just come in, introduce yourself. I really appreciate everybody that takes time out of their week to listen and watch. When this started and Shane said, hey, you want to do your own show? I kind of really joked and said, who on earth would ever want to listen to me? And it's been really, really great to be able to interact with you guys every week in a different way. So thank you all very much. And again, if I get a chance to, really looking forward to meeting all of you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I hope you guys have a great time. I've informed my family when the schedule comes out for next season. We're gonna get this tailgate announcement announced in the spring, or as soon as the dates for the games come out. We're gonna get that done almost immediately, and I will have my plane tickets secured and everything. And I said if I am not missing it next year under any circumstance. If people,
thank God, because Maisie is very upset. So I have my two girls, Aubrey and Maisie, and Maisie, we were talking about meeting everyone, and she's like, "Can I get?" Her first two questions are, "Do I get to meet Mr. Shane?" And second, "Can I get Cool Kennedy's autograph because he wrote your song?" So, and when I told her that Shane unfortunately won't be making, she's like, "Are you fighting? I don't understand."
Only sometimes. Only sometimes.
So you might have to like stay here while you do it just to appease her, and remember to do that because she will end you probably otherwise. So.
Oh yeah, no, I'll bring my lovely family, everybody in tow next year, and Emerson can fuck Illinois up like she tends to fuck New York up. But
oh boy.
No, I hope you guys have a great time. I know everybody's headed over to Mr. Larison's to have a good time, and then whatever Saturday brings, and then most importantly, the game on Sunday. I'm going to be holding things down here back in the TTNL studios. BHL will still be live as soon as the game goes final. It's going to have a little bit of a different look this Sunday with Phil being at the game, and really – it's going to be myself, Christopher Jackal, running the show. Caden Whitlow is going to be in the background, putting up the comments and producing in the background for us. So hope you guys still get in the chat for BHL, and hopefully we have a really fun and exciting game to talk about, and maybe we can sneak out a dub, but let's see this production and progression keep heading up, and just enjoy the ride, Bears fans. We fucking deserve it. It's been a long time.
And remember, at the tailgate, if you can't find Phil, just look on top of Ivan's shoulders. That's the only way you're going to be able to see him.
He'll be holding the handlebar mustache so it doesn't fall down. But all right, guys, we love you. bear down. Don't forget BHL. As soon as we hit zeros on the clock, Sunday after Detroit, Chicago. See you all then.
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch. Go.